The PlayStation Store just kicked off a great flash sale, and while there aren't a ton of games on sale, the games that are on sale are discounted pretty heavily, and there are some great deals you guys can pick up right now. In this video, we're going to be going over the best deals to pick up as a part of this flash sale. We've got 10 deals to go over, so let's get right into this. Until Dawn for $6. Until Dawn has been one of the sleeper PlayStation 4 exclusives of this generation. It was done by a little studio known as Supermassive Games, not the most well-known studio in the world. But given what expectations were, Until Dawn was honestly an absolute home run. There's a lot of similarities to a Quantic Dreams title in that it's very light on the gameplay and is obviously more story-driven, with the choices really impacting how the game turns out. Maybe at the full price of $60 it was a little bit too expensive, but now it's down to just a measly $6. That's literally 10% of its original price, so you have no excuse to check it out. It's good for a playthrough or two, and you can have some fun with it.
Looking for me? You're only going to see what I want you to see. And I have quite a lot to show you.
What is going on?
Next up, The Last of Us Remastered for $8. The Last of Us was the swan song to the PlayStation 3 in terms of marquee exclusives, and what a way to go out for that platform. A year after its initial release, it was brought over to the PlayStation 4 in the form of The Last of Us Remastered. This version includes the base game as well as the Left Behind DLC, and of course you've got all your typical technical improvements, better visuals, better performance, all that good stuff. If you've yet to play The Last of Us, this is absolutely the version to buy, and if you haven't played The Last of Us yet, I should mention that you are doing yourself a great service. It's one of the best PlayStation exclusives ever released, and arguably Naughty Dog's best game ever, and that says a lot because they are one of the most storied game studios. Now that it's down to just $8, this is a great pickup. Soma for $9. Soma was developed by Frictional Games, who also did the great Amnesia games, but in my opinion, Soma is even better than the Amnesia titles. Soma has some great visuals, and what's really the strength of Soma is absorbing you into the world. This is a completely atmospheric game, and once again, it's pretty light on the gameplay in terms of there's not a lot of combat. You kind of just have to make your way through the game silently, but again, that adds to the atmosphere and the immersion of the game. It released for $30, but now it's down to just $9, and I would say that's a great pickup.
Anything at all. There is no need to be concerned. You are always safe. Continue. Yes, what a curious thing to be aware of yourself. Looking out from inside your little box.
Oxenfree for $5. Oxenfree is one of those games that I always go to bat for. It was developed by Night School Studios, a newer studio that did have developers from titles such as The Walking Dead from Telltale. And you can kind of see some of that shine through. Oxenfree is definitely a story-driven game, a little bit different than Telltale games in terms of its presentation, but it's got a very quirky art style, and what I find to be the strength of Oxenfree is that it's a very relatable experience. It centers around a group of teenagers, and you find their interactions very realistic. It's a bit of a nostalgia game, although I should mention there are supernatural beings introduced and everything goes awry, so it's definitely got that element to it as well, but it's a great game, and for just $5 I would highly recommend you to check it out.
Ren made it sound like.
Yeah, but I mean...
You used to come here a lot as a kid, right? You used to come here a lot as a kid.
Something's wrong.
Zero Escape the Nonary games for $20. Zero Escape is one of those franchises I'm sure a lot of you guys haven't given a look to, and with it still being $20, it is a hefty investment, especially when you look at some of these other games and their prices. However, these games are very solid visual novels. Again, pretty light on the gameplay, but these games have some exhilarating stories. I know the presentation style will turn some gamers off, but just give these games a chance, and I'm sure by the first hour or two, you are going to get absolutely hooked. And if you enjoy these, there's also a little franchise called Danganronpa that I'm a big fan of. I would recommend you to check that out as well. But speaking of Zero Escape, the Nonary games, you get both 9.99 and Virtue's Last Reward, and for $20, that's pretty solid.
How are you feeling? I am Zero the Third, the king of this kingdom! I'm plenty friendly.
Hold on a minute. That is the truth.
Who am I? How can I forget?
Then how do I take it off?
What makes you so sure?
Hello.
BioShock the Collection for $20. BioShock was one of the greatest new IPs of last generation, spanning 3 games, BioShock, BioShock 2, and BioShock Infinite. All 3 games were fantastic single-player first-person shooters. BioShock was great. I think some gamers were a little bit disappointed by BioShock 2, but that may have been because the anticipation going into it and the hype was so high. That game is still really good, and BioShock Infinite is absolutely fantastic. So to get all 3 of those games, better visuals, better performance, all the DLC content at just $20, this is a great pickup.
Are you afraid of God?
No, but I'm afraid of you.
Let's go out to play, Daddy.
It's time to finish this.
Bring us the girl and wipe away the debt. There's already a fight. The question is, which side you on?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could do with it?
Next up, we have Alien Isolation for $9. Alien Isolation was an awesome survival horror game released all the way back in 2014. Now, the issue with Alien Isolation may have been its pricing. At the initial $60 price point, I could see why gamers were hesitant to drop the full price on it. Obviously, that's not a problem now, and what you're getting out of Alien Isolation is an incredible atmosphere. Just like Soma, Alien Isolation really does a good job of absorbing you into the game's world, and visually, it was absolutely spectacular. The gameplay's solid, and overall, it was a great game that released earlier on in the PlayStation 4's life, so maybe you missed out on it. Now that it's down to just $9, I would highly recommend you to give it a shot. Prey for $20. Prey was one of the most underrated games of 2017. It was done by Arcane Studios, and they created a great reboot of 2006's Prey. Don't worry, you don't have to play that game at all. This is a complete reboot with a brand new story, and it turned out to be a very engrossing single-player first-person shooter. Now, unlike a lot of first-person shooter campaigns, this one has a lot of depth to it. It's got a good amount of content that'll take you around 20 to 30 hours to complete if you want to do everything. The gameplay is very robust, and $20 is a bit steep for the game. I mean, it is 11 months old at this point, but I would say it's very much worth that. A great single-player sci-fi first-person shooter.
Warning, this is a station-wide emergency. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We can fight the invasion. If I can't save us, I'm taking every last one of them with me.
Next up, we have The Evil Within 1 and 2. Want to get both of these games in. The Evil Within digital bundle is $12, and then The Evil Within 2 is $30. Now, you don't need to play the first Evil Within to enjoy The Evil Within 2. I found that game very enjoyable right from the get-go. So if you want to skip the first game altogether and just jump into The Evil Within 2, you can definitely do that, and I should mention that The Evil Within 2 is a better game than The Evil Within, although the first game is still solid, and it'll give you some background into the game's world. The Evil Within 2 is a game that Tango Gameworks have been updating. They just introduced a first-person mode, so that's nice, and considering this game was a relatively recent release, it came out about 6 months ago, $30 isn't all too bad, but it has been dropping in price pretty quickly, so keep that in mind. Maybe just check out the first game for now, as it is only $12, and then you can pick up the sequel sometime down the line. You can't go wrong with either of them.
We can help each other. Join me.
Keep shooting until they're dead or we run out of ammo.
Once I have the power.
And finally, we have Darksiders 2 Deathinitive Edition for $6. Darksiders was one of those franchises that didn't get as popular as you might have initially thought. A lot of gamers, after the release of the first Darksiders, were comparing it as a cross between The Legend of Zelda and God of War, and on the surface, that sounds absolutely awesome, and maybe I've hyped up Darksiders a little bit too much by saying that because it's not quite as good as either of those games, but it's still got some solid gameplay, great puzzles, and given the fact that Darksiders 2 Deathinitive Edition is only $6, you really can't go wrong with it, and considering that Darksiders 3 is also on the horizon, now wouldn't be a bad time to familiarize yourself with the franchise.
The hero dies in the end. Ask your brother.
So that's gonna wrap up this video. 10 awesome deals as a part of the PlayStation Store flash sale. This flash sale will end on April 16th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, so you got a little bit of time to check these games out. Some great deals all around, so let us know if you're picking any of these games up and sound off with your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.